What's up guys, Elliot here, and today we're reviewing the Miami Grand Prix. F1 really went to town on the whole Miami thing. It felt like all of Sky's coverage and any F1 coverage that I saw was just talking about how great F1 was doing in the States right now and how it's kind of made it and cracked America. And well, yes, F1 seems to be riding a wave right now, and the Miami weekend seems to be like a success. I feel like I maybe got a little bit Miami'd out. The fake marina, the police escort at the end, the really drawn out process at the end there after the race, the football helmets as well. It just felt a little bit too much to me. But the track seemed decent and the race wasn't too bad either. I'd perhaps make a little change to turn 14 and 15, the chicane there. The drivers seemed to complain about that and it didn't make the best racing. But apart from that, it seemed to be a pretty decent track. They had a few issues with the tarmac, having to resurface the track over the weekend a number of times, but I think it was a successful race back in Miami. Let's discuss the race and the key talking points. Unfortunately for Aston Martin, they had some fuel issues which meant they didn't make it to the grid and they had to start from the pit lane, which actually set up a nice battle between them and the Haas drivers later on in the race, which we'll get onto. But it was a good start for Max. He managed to get Carlos into the first corner, and it was a poor start for both the Mercedes drivers, but they both managed to start making their way up further up the grid. And on lap 9, Max actually managed to get Charles for the lead and seemed to be scampering off into the distance. Even despite the first round of pit stops, it didn't really bring too much intrigue because there was still a 3.5 second, 4 second gap, and then Max was able to pull that out to about 7 seconds. And unfortunately for Perez, he had some engine issues. He was closing on Sainz for P3, and unfortunately he backed off and lost a load of seconds. Looked like that might be terminal, but they managed to get it under control. I think it was a misfiring sensor. Unfortunately for Checo, he was down on power for the rest of the race and proved to be pivotal in his battle with Carlos Sainz towards the end. But once again for the Ferraris, they were suffering with higher tyre wear than the Red Bulls, and the Red Bulls have got greater top speed than the Ferraris, which is turning out to be a real weapon for them and turned out to be decisive in this race. And the best scrap of the race before the eventual safety car was between the two Aston Martin and the two Haas cars. They seemed to be having a good fun race, good hard racing, and it was looking like Schumacher was doing great as well. He was getting right in there, stuck in there. And it's probably one of his best weekends as well of his career. He's so far been overshadowed by Magnussen this season, but it was looking like a strong result for Mick. And then Gasly had a little coming together with Alonso. That seemed like that might be the incident to spice up the race, but that didn't turn out to be. But then a lap or two later, Gasly had a weird incident. He missed a few corners. It looked as if his steering potentially was getting heavy, or he wasn't able to fully turn the wheel. And Norris was about to go past him and they came together. If I'm going to apportion blame, it's probably got to be with Gasly. I don't know why Norris didn't leave a little bit more space, but a lot of the drivers were complaining about lack of grip offline, and dirty offline as well. So Norris was potentially looking to try and keep his tyres as clean as possible. But unfortunately, they came together and it was the end for both of their race. But it gave us the bit of intrigue and a bit of interest that we needed. Initially, a virtual safety car came out, which massively helped Russell. He was able to pit under the safety car after going along on the hards. And then a full safety car came out, which bunched up the pack and made the race a bit spicy, which it definitely needed. And surprisingly, Leclerc seemed to have the pace on Verstappen at the restart. Maybe the Ferrari firing up its tyres a little bit better, but Leclerc was hustling and hounding Verstappen for a few laps, but then Verstappen was able to get away and build a small gap and take the win. And it was a strong win for Verstappen. He's won every race that he's finished, and it's a nice strong bounce back for Verstappen, clawing back the points deficit that he's got on Leclerc. The deficit down to 19 now. Unfortunately for Checo, he only managed to finish in 4th despite pitting under the safety car for mediums. I think that engine issue hampered him, otherwise he probably would have got Carlos, if not even Leclerc. Checo had a good race considering his issues, but that seems to be the weakness for the Red Bulls at the minute, is their reliability, and that could decide this championship if they can't get on top of their reliability. Right now they're the fastest car, and it's the only thing that I can see stopping them right now. So Carlos brought it home in P3, which on the face of it's not a bad result, but I think unfortunately for Carlos, he's had another messy weekend. He had a spin in free practice 1 and a crash in free practice 2, which meant he didn't have a good rhythm, he had a lack of laps, and he was happy to come away qualifying in 2nd, but he was still 2.5 tenths back. And, you know, really, he's being overshadowed by his teammate this year so far, which is a shame. And I feel like there's more in Carlos. I mean, only have to look at his first season at Ferrari last year. He was great. He came in there and really was able to match, if not outperform, Charles last season. So it's disappointing for Carlos. I think if he could get a win under his belt, it would be good for his confidence. And I think there's a mental barrier when haven't got that first win yet. I think it would be good for him to get that soon. But I think, to be honest, it's a bit of a disappointing weekend for Carlos. I mean, before the safety car, he was 30 plus seconds behind Charles. So I really hope Carlos can start picking up his season and start getting some better results. If you like the video so far, then please consider dropping a like and subscribe for more F1 content. And after the restart, the two Mercedes were together behind Bottas in an excellent P5, and to be honest, looking like he would probably get 5th or 6th if the safety car didn't come out. And unfortunately, he was really hampered by the safety car. He went in deep into that final hairpin and lost out to the two Mercedes drivers. And that was definitely no team orders there between Lewis and George. Lewis actually defending relatively hard but fair with his teammate, and George actually getting the place off the track, so having to give it back to Lewis and then getting him back again. Unfortunately, we didn't see it on the coverage too much, but that was a nice battle between the two Mercedes drivers. George again having luck go his way with the safety car as he did with Australia, and Menny got the jump on Lewis again as he did in Australia. But I think that's a good result for the Mercedes team. Best of the rest behind the top two teams right now. Probably the best that Mercedes could hope for while they're still struggling with their issues. And it was a good result for Bottas. He had a good race. He had a good weekend, actually. But that's got to be satisfying for Bottas, hasn't it? To be fighting it out with his old team and looking like he's going to beat them at times as well. So a fantastic weekend again for Bottas. And I said earlier on that the Aston Martin and Haas drivers were battling it out. Well, that carried on after the safety car as well, with Mick going for a lunge on the inside of Sebastian. And unfortunately, the two coming together. And it's disappointing for Mick because it was looking like he was going to be on for his first points. And I feel like he got his nose in. The gap wasn't really there. It was always going to be closing. He didn't get alongside Sebastian enough. They've got this kind of mentor-apprentice kind of relationship, and they're sort of best friends. And it's almost like a little bit too nice. But I think Mick's got to take away the positives. He's had his best weekend probably of his F1 career. He was really a match, if not better than Magnussen this weekend. So he's got to take the positives, and those points will come. So it's another good weekend for Red Bull, and to be honest, damage limitation for Ferrari on a track that potentially wasn't going to suit them as well, with the long straights and number of DRS zones. Right now, that Red Bull car is the car to beat. It's rapid in a straight line. It's good on its tyres, but it's fragile. So there's a glimmer of hope for Ferrari, and they've got some upgrades coming to Barcelona. So it'll be interesting to see how well they work. It'll be some of the first major updates of the season for Ferrari. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can stop the Max and Red Bull charge. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.